What's going on, everyone? So there are reports that the Los Angeles Lakers are in conversations with the Miami Heat once again to try to acquire Andrew Wiggins leading into training camp. The Lakers want to try to get it done by training camp if they can. Right, Lakers are willing to give up, it looks like Rui Hachimura and Dalton Connect. The reports from Evan Sinery just said Connect plus expirings, but you probably would have to get to Dalton Connect because, I mean, maybe you're doing Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber plus Dalton Connect, which would make more sense, right? But the Lakers don't want to give up a first in the process, so if they're going to have to not give up, or if they're not going to give up a first, then they're probably going to have to give up Rui Hachimura. But if you can keep Rui Hachimura, then maybe you give up the first, because now you kind of have Rui for a bench production and whatnot, and you can even have games where you have like Wiggins at the 3, and so like if LeBron gets the night off, you put Rui at the 4, Wiggins at the 3. If say Austin Reeves gets the night off or Luka gets the night off, you can slide Reeves over, slide Wiggins over, bring in Rui, so on and so forth. So Rui can kind of be that sixth man for the Lakers, and I think that would be really good for him. I think that'd be good for this Lakers team. That'd be good for the bench, and that might be enticing enough to give up a first. You could always trade Rui in his expiring contract, which would have value come the trade deadline. Right, so you'd still have flexibility, you'd still have options, there's still things you could get done. Also, Dalton Connect and Rui Hachimura wouldn't be enough money to bring in Andrew Wiggins. Like, Lakers would have to do like a salary dump trade or something like that, or get a third team involved and whatnot. So I see a lot of just like talk about like Rui and Dalton Connect, but again, you wouldn't be able to do that trade even if you wanted to. You wouldn't be able to pull that off even if they were willing to do that without a first, right? Because Lakers would have to clear salary at that point. But there is a report or, reported trade from Bleacher Report that's going around that I wanted to talk about. Kind of just fun, interesting. I'm not going to, usually Bleacher Report, ESPN, and all these other things, fleece the Lakers crazy in these types of trades. It's like, Lakers give up Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and a first with 3 pick swaps for Andrew Wiggins. I actually feel like they're fleecing Miami in this trade. Right? I don't think Miami would do anything close to this. Maybe if the Lakers added a first, but there's no first in it. So it's a 3-team trade between the Los Angeles Lakers, the Miami Heat, and the Brooklyn Nets. So the Lakers in the deal get Andrew Wiggins, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Timmy from the Brooklyn Nets. So you get Andrew Wiggins, Jaime Jaquez, who the Lakers probably should have drafted instead of Jalen Hood-Schifino, and Drew Timme, who's another big man that you can add to the roster. The Miami Heat would get Rui Hachimura, Dalton Connect, and a $10 million trade exception. Maybe that trade exception would be enough to incentivize Miami, right? So maybe if they could get that extra $10 million, they could use that in a trade later, or they could let it expire. So maybe you would be able to do it without a first because of that $10 million trade exception. It would just give Miami the option to make a move later on. I still think you'd probably have to give up a pick swap or something along those lines. But the Brooklyn Nets would get Maxi Kleber, 2026 protected Brooklyn second-round pick, which would be from Miami. So Miami's also giving up a 2026 protected pick, $4.6 million from the Nets, and then $2 million from the Lakers. So there's also notes here that the Lakers aggregate Hachimura, Connect, and Kleber to acquire Wiggins, Jaime Jaquez, while Brooklyn uses cap space to absorb Kleber's salary. Miami gets Connect via the Jimmy Butler trade exception, leaving $3.8 million balance, although the team could choose to use its Hayward Highsmith exception instead. Timmy, on a minimum contract, remains non-guaranteed for the Lakers book, so it actually give the Lakers some flexibility. So you could even kind of, I don't know off the top of my head how long it's non-guaranteed for. I don't know if it's the whole season or not, but if it is, great, and kind of see how it goes. If you have a like a deadline or something, then you could waive them if you need be. Kind of figure that out, give you some options in that regard. And then the 2026 second round pick is a token gesture, with Miami returning the Nets pick, which was never likely to convey with top 55 protection. So to be fair, the Miami second round pick that they would give back to the Nets is one that they're probably not going to get regardless. So they really wouldn't be losing that pick. It's just kind of like, hey, thanks for being the middle team. And look, Miami had to give up a second round pick to get off of Highsmith, right? Or Highsmith. putting Hayward and Highsmith together. So getting off of Andrew Wiggins' salary, you'd have to, in concept, give up something, right? I know, like, Andrew Wiggins, I do think that there are a lot of teams that would want him. The Lakers benefit because, one, Miami wants to clear salary, and two, yes, there's teams that can clear salary for him, but they're not teams that are trying to win that might necessarily need Andrew Wiggins. And two, so Miami, without the Lakers, Miami has to find a team that values Andrew Wiggins enough to give something in return, on top of having nothing but expiring contracts to where you can clear up the cap space for the books and clear off $30 million next season, right? And then find a team that actually, like I said, wants Andrew Wiggins, but is not some team that Andrew Wiggins is just going to want to get off of, because he does have a player option. So he could look at it as like, hey, I'm going to leave. So that team's not going to want to give up assets. So you need to find a team that Andrew Wiggins actually wants to go to. So there's a lot of factors in play here beyond just like, hey, just, Andrew Wiggins can go anywhere. Like, it's not that simple, right? And you more likely than not would need a third team regardless, because Miami has to make things work. They need to fill out a roster spot. They need to fill out the roster. They need to make sure they have cap space. Lakers have to do the same thing, so they can't take on a bunch of salary. I don't hate this trade. For the Lakers make out like bandits, right? Because, like I said, you get Andrew Wiggins, you get Jaime Jaquez Jr., who, yes, took a drastic decline for Miami last year, and there's kind of questions in Miami, like, where is he going to play? Where does he kind of fit in? But Jaime Jaquez, young player, I think it would make some sense for the Lakers. Get back to the hometown kid, who they probably should have drafted in the beginning. So I do think that makes sense. And then Drew Timme just gives you a big man that maybe you can kind of keep on the roster, especially with the departure of Maxi Kleber. Maybe you look to move off of him, free up some cap space to maybe bring in another guy or two. There's options if that guy presents itself. Like I said, Golden State, there's a couple players, DeAnthony Melton, Al Horford, that are getting a little itchy. If you get off of Timmy's contract and then bring in Al Horford, now you're talking. You told me the Lakers got Andrew Wiggins, Al Horford, and Jaime Jaquez out of this deal. Lakers are probably winning the NBA championship, right? Like, you just get more depth, more versatility, you get some veteran experience, you get a lot of things from this team. Miami, Miami gets what they want. They get Rui Hachimura. In the expiring contracts, they get Dalton Connect, which they could absorb in an exception, so it doesn't like mess up their things. And they get a $10 million trade exception, which would allow them to make a trade later on, right? And just do things, or again, clear the salary. My problem is that, again, I don't think that they would do it without getting a first in return, because they're giving up. They're not giving up anything crazy, right? They're giving up Andrew Wiggins and they're giving up Jaime Jaquez plus a second round pick. They're giving up the pick, but the pick itself, again, is top 55 protect. So it's almost guaranteed not to convey, right? Like, Brooklyn's probably not going to, maybe, but it's probably not going to convey. So you don't really lose anything on the pick. So it's really just like Andrew Wiggins and Jaime Jaquez. Maybe you take Jaime Jaquez out of the deal and you kind of work some kind of configurations here, and then the Lakers don't take on Timme. But the problem is the Lakers also would have to clear off salary because they got to fill a roster spot. If the Lakers do a 3-for-1 swap, right? That's why this trade makes sense, because it solves, Lakers are sending out 3 players, getting back 3 players. It solves the Lakers' issues with filling out the roster spot, because the Lakers need to fill out the roster spot. So they can't trade for Andrew Wiggins and then not have any money to fill at least that 14th spot. Right? If you send out 3 guys, which is likely going to happen, now you need to fill 2 spots, and the Lakers wouldn't have the money to do so. So Lakers have to clear salary as well as, make the trade that makes sense for Andrew Wiggins. It's a lot that the Lakers have to solve too in order to get this done, where the Nets can kind of come in. So I don't think this is crazy. I think the Lakers, like I said, make out huge here, because you get Andrew Wiggins, Jaime Jaquez, and Drew Timme. So you get 2 young guys that you can maybe kind of see how do they play, how do they work, and then if you need to make some decisions later on. But I think at the end of the day, the Lakers would have to give up some type of draft capital. But I'm not gonna lie, if you told me we get Andrew Wiggins and Jaime Jaquez, right? Like, remove the Drew Timme thing, because Lakers may just waive him and then bring somebody else in. Especially if you can get Al Horford. If you told me, right, just remove Timme for the moment, right? If you told me we could get Andrew Wiggins and Jaime Jaquez for Rui, Dalton Connect, and Maxi Kleber plus a first, it'd be hard to say no to, right? And then you also would clear off, like if you take off Timmy, you'd clear off the salary space to, if the Nets absorb that, but I don't know if they'd want to absorb that much. That's why they'd be throwing Drew Timmy in. But like, you'd have enough cap space to bring in another guy, and you bring in Al Horford. If essentially you told me you got Andrew Wiggins, Jaime Jaquez, and Al Horford for Rui, Connect, Maxi Kleber, and a first, I think you'd be crazy not to do that, because you get an upgrade at the power forward position and the backup center position, because Al Horford could play either side. You get Andrew Wiggins, who would be an upgrade over Rui Hachimura and make your starting five significantly better. And you get a young guy in Jaime Jaquez, who was really good in his rookie season. Again, kind of tapered off, since then. But it is possible, I think, that he could get back to being in the swing of things. He'd be in his hometown. It gives you another just versatile forward that could slot in at the 3 or the 4 for you. So it just gives you more flexibility. I love this trade if it could happen. I just don't know. Like, again, it's not, I don't think it's crazy to where like everybody on paper gets what they want. Miami gets what they want. They get the cap space as well as a young player in Dalton Connect that they can grow, develop with, and they get that trade exception to where they can make other moves. And if that guy comes along at some point, you can go make that move, make that trade. So that's the incentive there. You're clearing salary, which has value, right? You had to give up a veteran 3-and-D wing that every team in the league would love to have on their team. You had to give up a second to get off of him because teams don't want to help you. So again, you're basically giving back basically the cost of that trade. That's what this would come from. So you're just sending that second round pick back that's top 55 protected, which you weren't going to get anyway. You're sending that back to them. So the pick, who cares? The pick is irrelevant. It's just the Jaime Jaquez part. But I don't think, again, Miami doesn't seem so high on Jaime Jaquez that I think that you'd also get off of his contract too. You know what I mean? Like, I guess technically you're swapping him with Connect, but the point is that like, just it gives you flexibility, gives you the thing. Like, I don't think Miami would say no. I think that they would push to try to get, a pick in the deal, right? Even if it's pick swaps, something like that. If you had to give up your second, right? Like, so if Miami wants to keep that second and you give up give a second to the Nets, fine. Because you're getting Jaime Jaquez in the deal. That's kind of would be my key. And you're hoping that Jaime Jaquez kind of get back to being that player for the Lakers that he was his rookie season. If you can kind of solve that and those things can work out, then I think you're in absolute business. I think you're in the money. But still a lot of things to kind of play out, figure out, and work out. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.